Hey guys, welcome back. We are in 1 Kings chapter 20 today. I want to talk to you about the importance of how we fight battles and the importance of not giving up after the victory has been won, because the next battle is coming soon. Learn all about it on today's episode. Listen on in.
Welcome to Everyday Truth with Kurt Skelly. We believe the Bible is true and relevant to everyone, everywhere, every day. If today's conversation is a help to you, take a moment to leave a review or share it with a friend. Thanks for listening. Now, let's join Kurt for today's episode.
Hey friends, welcome back to yet another episode of Everyday Truth. I'm here in the Holiday Inn Express in Simpsonville, South Carolina. Had the great opportunity this morning to preach for Pastor Steve Cox and the great people of Bible Baptist Church. And if you want to see a church that is just on the go for the Lord, wow, that church really is. In fact, I spoke to a lady after church who talked about her mom and her mother-in-law, Ann and Patricia, who listen to this podcast every day. So Ann and Patricia, just want you to know how much I appreciate you and your faithfulness to the Lord and to the podcast. Talked to several people today that listen every day and just really appreciate each and every one of you. As you know, we're in 1 Kings chapter 20, and we've been talking a bit about how God gets people's attention. And God has already showed himself strong to Ahab through the contest at Mount Carmel. But Ahab, for some reason, has reverted back to a position of not trusting the Lord, not seeking the Lord. And here in 1 Kings 20, he's facing another kind of a battle. This is not a drought, but Ben-Hadad, the king of Syria, has actually come and surrounded the city and has made some pretty audacious demands of Ahab. Said, I'm going to take your silver and gold, and I'm going to take some of your kingly harem to myself. And Ahab, unwisely, has actually said yes to Ben-Hadad. But then I'm trying to say too much at once. Then Ben-Hadad, there we go. I tried to conflate Ben-Hadad and Ahab together, and I came up with Bahab. But Ben-Hadad said to Ahab, well, no, actually, I'm going to take much more than that. I'm going to send my servants in, and whatever they want of anything, they're going to take. Well, at this point, Ahab says to his servants, his counselors, what should I do? The counselors said, no way. Do not allow this to happen. So the counselors, even though they're facing the same intimidation as Ahab is facing, they've drawn this line to say, listen, this is a non-negotiable. And we don't know necessarily how the battle's going to turn out, but you have to say no to some things. And we talked all yesterday in our episode, or I should say Friday in our episode, about we have to be willing to draw non-negotiable lines in our life. But today, I want to talk about how the story continues to unfold, because the message goes back to Ben-Hadad that, hey, no, the answer is no. We made an agreement. I'm going to give you tribute money. I'm going to allow you to take some of my family members, which I think was a poor agreement in the first place. But Ahab said, I won't go further than that. Watch the response now of Ben-Hadad in verse 10. And Ben-Hadad said unto him, the gods do so unto me and more also, if the dust of Samaria will suffice for handfuls for all the people that follow me. In other words, I swear to God, his gods, that I will destroy Samaria. I am that mad that somebody has defied me. So this advice that Ahab received from his counselors that he has now relayed to Ben-Hadad seems to have gone badly, because now Ben-Hadad's really mad and he's going to wield his power and flex his muscles and destroy Ahab and Israel with him. But remember, there is a God, and there's a God in Israel. And when Ben-Hadad is picking a fight against Ahab, he's really picking a fight against God. Look at verse 11. The king of Israel answered and said, tell him, let not him that girdeth on his harness boast himself as he that putteth it off. That's just a fancy way of saying that Ahab sent a message back to say, hey, don't talk big at the beginning of a battle, talk big after you've won a battle. So Ahab has a little bit of confidence going on here, a little trash talking that's taking place. Let's find out what happens. So it came to pass, this is verse 12, that when Ben-Hadad heard this message as he was drinking, he and the kings in the pavilions, that he said to his servants, set yourselves in array, and they set themselves in array against the city. So the message gets back to Ben-Hadad, who is supremely overconfident. So Ben-Hadad is in one of these makeshift camps, pavilions. He's there with all the other upper-ups, the 32 kings of the city-states in this coalition. He gets the message, and what's he doing? He's not strategizing. What's he doing? He's not praying to his gods. What's he doing? He's not examining the troops. No, he is drinking. So he is supremely overconfident. He is a man of the flesh. He has, in every sense, considered this battle not a battle at all. He's just going to mop up the competition. And how many of us understand that that kind of attitude is bad in any arena? You think about the sports arena and how many times a team has assumed that they're playing a weaker team and they're looking beyond that weaker team to the next game or the next series. And they don't ever get out of the pennant series to the World Series because they underestimated the first team. And that's what Ben-Hadad is doing here. Verse 13, and behold, there came a prophet unto Ahab, king of Israel. So 2 times in today's passage, we're going to find that God intervened for Ahab with a prophet. And remember, a prophet is one in the Old Testament who is communicating a message from God. So God is still interested in Ahab. He's still interested in Ahab following the word of God. And the prophet comes to Ahab and says, thus saith the Lord, hast thou seen all this great multitude? Behold, I will deliver it into thine hand this day. Thou shalt know that I am the Lord. So God's message is, Ahab, see how big they are? Well, the bigger they come, the harder they fall. And what you're going to see today is you're going to see the battle is going to be won. And when the battle is won, you're going to know that I am God. Now, that's been the message that God has been trying to convey to Ahab now for these years, that he is the God. Not Baal is not God. These false gods that are served by the Syrians, they are not God. But the Lord, Jehovah, is God. And Ahab has testified about that. He made kind of a foxhole conversion testimony at Mount Carmel, but he really doesn't believe it in his heart of hearts. So God is demonstrating through this time of weakness, he's going to demonstrate that this battle that Ahab could never, humanly speaking, win, he's going to demonstrate that Ahab, I am God. So verse 14, and let me see, yes, verse 14, Ahab said, by whom? So we're going to win this battle. And Ahab, instead of trusting God, instead of just saying, okay, God, I believe you, he said, well, how? How are we going to win this battle? By whom? Who am I going to use? No, we're surrounded. We just have a few people. There's an innumerable host out there. This seems, I'm incredulous to all of this. By whom? And he said, thus saith the Lord. So here's the answer from God. Even by the young men of the princes of the provinces. Then he said, who shall order the battle? And he said, thou. So think about how this is unfolded. God says, through his word, you're going to win, Ahab, this battle, and you're going to know I'm God. And Ahab essentially says, well, how am I supposed to do that? I mean, who am I going to use to win this battle? I don't have anybody. And what God says is you're going to use the young men. Well, you would never use the young men. You would never use the inexperienced men. You'd never send a minority of people up against a majority, and you would never send inexperience up against experience. And yet that's exactly what God is saying to do. And Ahab is thinking, that's crazy. And who's going to lead them into battle? And God says, you are. So God is putting Ahab right in the battle to demonstrate to Ahab, you're going to have to trust me. You're going to have some sweat equity in this situation as well. I'm telling you what's going to happen, but you must participate. There is a faith element here. And it says in verse 15, he numbered the young men of the princes of the province. They were 232. So he has 232 leaders. That's ridiculous. After them, he numbered all the people, even all the children of Israel, 7,000. Is that not ironic? Because during the drought, God told Elijah, or after the drought, God told Elijah that there were 7,000 prophets of God that had not bowed the knee to Baal. Well, now, when it comes to being surrounded at the capital city of Samaria, ironically, there are only 7,000 people available to Ahab. So God has a bit of irony going on here. And they went out at noon. So high noon, they send out the 232, they send out the 7,000. Ahab is leading the battle, but Ben-Hadad was drinking himself drunk in the pavilions, he and the kings, the 32 kings that helped him. So part of the reason why Ahab won the battle, obviously, is, well, the reason is God told him he would win. God fought that battle. But number two, Ahab is participating by faith, maybe a weak faith, but faith nonetheless. And number three, Ben-Hadad has this incredible overconfidence where he's just having this drunken party and he's in no position to make a decision, nor are the 32 kings that are with him. And it says in verse 17 that the young men of the princes of the provinces went out first. Ben-Hadad sent out and they told him, saying, there are men come out of Samaria. And he said, whether they become for peace or whether they come out for peace, take them alive. Or whether they come out for war, take them alive. So Ben-Hadad's like, I don't care why they're coming out. Maybe they're coming out to sue for peace. Maybe they're coming out to attack me. Either way, it's nothing. Just capture them alive because I want to make an example of them. And verse number 19, so these young men of the princes of the province came out of the city and the army which followed them, and they slew every one his man. And the Syrians fled, and Israel pursued them. And Ben-Hadad, the king of Syria, escaped on a horse with the horsemen. I mean, it's just a huge victory. A la David and Goliath. It's a rout. It's a romp that God has given this victory to these 232 young men and the 7,000 over this vast army, over Ben-Hadad, over all the kings. And the Bible says in verse 21, the king of Israel went out, smote the horses and chariots, and slew the Syrians with a great slaughter. Now, it might seem like, okay, that's it. God showed himself strong. Ahab demonstrated a measure of faith. The battle is over. Israel is now in a strengthened position. But that's why I want to read you one last verse. And the one last verse I want to read you is verse 22, where the prophet came to the king of Israel and said, go strengthen thyself and mark, in other words, watch out, see what thou doest, for at the return of the year, the king of Syria will come up against thee. Hey, Ahab, great, this is wonderful, enjoy the victory for the moment, celebrate, but it's not over. Don't think for a moment that Ben-Hadad is not going to redouble his efforts to come back and attack you again. So get yourself ready for the next phase of the battle. That's good advice for you and me. You know, when we win victories, we trust the Lord. We see the inevitable, or the unlikely, I should say, things happen in our life. That's wonderful. Celebrate that victory. Be glad. But know this, that the next battle is coming. And never should we rest on our laurels like Ben-Hadad was doing. Never should we assume that it's all over. As long as we're in this life, we are fighting battles. As long as we're in this life, the next attack is coming. And what we need to do is learn from the faith of the last battle and not put ourselves in the same position that caused us to be surrounded in the first place. So we'll stop there in verse number 22. I think we'll finish out the chapter next episode. But until then, I want you to have a great day in the Lord. We'll talk to you next time. God bless you, my friends.